Apologies, members. We're now streaming live.
Thank you, Chris. Moving on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, attendance. Democratic Services will be making a note of members' attendance in the meeting, but should you lose connection, could you possibly leave a comment in the chat bar on your return, so to ensure that this is picked up. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. Dominique, do we have any apologies?
Yes, we do, thank you. We've had apologies from councillors Catherine Bonera, Nick Byrne, Richard Clark, Giles Davis, Stephen Evans, Joe Gordon, Carl Gordon, Elizabeth Haynes, Gaynor James, John James, Mark Jones and Nathan Yeo.
Thank you, Dominique. We're a bit thin on the ground this morning. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Justine Cass, Deputy Monitoring Officer, have you any advice for members, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member. Members have been told of the following declarations. In relation to agenda item 16, Councillors Peter Jones, Colette Thomas, Ron Burnett, Alan Slade and David Thomas wish to make a personal and prejudicial interest. Councillors, can you please confirm that this is a personal and prejudicial interest? Thank you. In relation to agenda item 17, Councillors Chris Chu and Sue Melson wish to declare a personal and prejudicial interest. Again, Councillors, can you please confirm this interest? Thank you. As an aside, as agenda item 12, the Chief Executive will leave the Chamber before the report is presented because he has a prejudicial interest in the report. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Thank you, Justine. That takes us to agenda item 4, confirmation of the council minutes for 23rd of the 4th, 24, starting on page 5. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. Nobody's signal. I'll take those as approved. Thank you very much. Agenda item 5, confirmation of council minutes the 14th of the 5th, 2024, starting on page 39 of your agenda. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. They're approved. Thank you very much. Takes us to agenda item 6, the update on actions. Members, the updates on what has been done to implement our previous decisions start on page 51 of the agenda. Could you possibly indicate whether you have any questions or comments? Can I ask members whether they agree to note the update on those actions, please? Agreed. Thank you. They're noted. Agenda item 7, receipt of petitions. We have one petition today, and the petition is in relation to Woodland Park. The petition reads, "We, the residents of Woodland Park, write to request that you issue compliance notices to Hills Leisure UK Limited, the park owners, to rectify issues on the park. The lack of care and maintenance of the park over a number of years has led to significant deterioration, which is plain to see. This is a petition on behalf of all those signing below, which we hope you will realise how many are totally dissatisfied with the fact that you have not issued notices to get works done. You are responsible for ensuring the park is run correctly in line with the licence, and we do not feel you are doing this. We have had 2 serious accidents to residents caused by items you are responsible for in that they breached the licence conditions. One resident fell down an unguarded steep drop and another falling down steps that we have been told are inadequate and dangerous. Providing access to properties on this park is the responsibility of the park owner, and they should be done to standard and checked by building control. Guarding steep drops in a condition on the site licence which Hills have totally ignored. The following are other issues that, despite you being made aware, you have failed to issue compliance notices for. Dangerous trees which need felling as per the report by the arborist. Sewage drains which need relaying because they are flowing uphill and constantly blocking. Hard standings need finishing to industry standard. Roads need resurfacing as they have potholes and poor repairs. Water supplies need overhauling as there are leaks, flooding and inadequate pressure in areas of the park. Walls need rebuilding and replacing as there were walls bowing and falling down. Rubbish and is an ongoing issue. When workmen do any work on the site, the rubbish is dumped somewhere on the site, and IFIT can be burned. They light fires and leave the fires unattended. The site licence states no bonfires. Electrical installations are generally substandard, and recently there was a situation where illegal meters were installed, resulting in the electricity board being called when cables were smoking. Street lighting needs addressing, and there are lights not working, damaged and broken, and the lighting is inadequate. In consultation with the Chief Executive and Monitoring Officer, I have decided to reject this petition. This request has been made on previous occasions, including in a petition that was submitted last year, and therefore it is considered vexatious. I'm satisfied that the Woodlands Park Residents Association is being supported by this council through other channels, and that this matter is being considered by officers. Thank you, members. Agenda item 8, public question time. There are no public questions, so we'll move on. Agenda item 9, announcements from the Leader or Chief Executive. Leader, do you have any announcements, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member. A few things I just wanted to mention. First of all, a big thank you to all in our communities involved in the 80th anniversary commemorations of D-Day. Myself, I attended a veterans event in Cwmbran and an event at Fishbond Park that was a beacon lighting. So thank you to all those involved in organising and attending those events. I think they're a fitting tribute to those who served and those who lost their lives on that momentous day. Secondly, a big well done to everyone involved in the big events on Saturday at Cwmbran Boating Lake, to Cwmbran Community Council and to all those involved in organising, performing on the day and exhibiting too. It was a packed day. I walked down to save having to try to park, and yeah, the fields were full on the day, so well done to everyone involved there. Also to all those involved in Tortvine's first Pride event in Pontypool Park on the 1st of June. Again, it was a well-attended and successful day, so I know the amount of hard work that goes into organising events like that, so thank you to all those involved in the organisation. Also to those involved in Picnic in the Park in Pontnewid Park, and to the other events that go on at this time of year. I know there's a number coming up over the next month or so. World Heritage Day in Blenavon at the end of the month, then Relay for Life on the 6th and 7th of July in Pontypool Park, and Party in the Park on the 13th of July too. So I look forward to those being successful events and proof that there's lots of good things to do in our communities free of charge, especially in the summer, and I hope the weather behaves for you all. A big well done to Torvine Tigers. 5 Torvine Tigers were newly selected for the Wales Physical Disability Rugby League team. That's Kevin Fellows, Aston Fish, Dylan Gimber, Dan Saunders, Luke Simmons, and they joined their teammates Sam Bowditch and Gareth Sullivan in the team. So well done to head coach Rob Davis and all those involved in Torvine Tigers Rugby League.
Thank you, Leader. Chief Executive, do you have any announcements to make?
Nothing to add, thank you, Madam Presiding Member.
Thank you very much. That takes us to agenda item 10, the Welsh Language Annual Monitoring Report, which is on page 53 of your agenda. I'd like to invite Councillor Peter Jones, Executive Member, to say a few words before Alan Vernon-Jones, the Welsh Language Officer. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Member. Alan will shortly talk us through the annual monitoring report for 2023-24. The report lists statutory data that we need to publish as part of our compliance with the Welsh language standards. One point I have taken from the report is that we have actively recruited and training more Welsh speakers within our workforce, helping to deliver Welsh language services where it is needed. We doubled the percentage of jobs requiring Welsh skills from under 5% at the end of March 2022 to nearly 10% in this report. Excuse me. The Adult and Communities Directorate have worked very hard to increase our Welsh language offer in a reasonable and proportionate manner. Removing internal costs for translation and finding innovative ways to increase capacity within current resources. We have a Welsh language team we can be proud of, offering advice and high-quality translations across the council and to our partners. In particular, I'd like to thank Alan for all the hard work that he does on this agenda. Diolch. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Alan Venn-Jones, Welsh Language Officer, could you deliver the report, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member, and Councillor Jones, for your kind words there. Bore da, members. I'm here to present the 7th annual report under the Welsh Language Measure 2011 and the Welsh Language Regulations number 1 2015 for the period April 2023 to March 24. The report is a legal requirement of the standards and, once approved by this Council, must be made available to all our public accessible offices and on our corporate website no later than the 30th of June 2024. The annual report must contain 5 strategy elements: compliance, complaints, Welsh language skills, Welsh language training and recruitment. Compliance with the standards has been the main focus of the team over the period of this report, working with directorates in complying with the 170 standards contained in the Council's compliance notice. The team translated over 1.5 million words in 23-24 and advised on actively promoting Welsh language services and cultural events. The report lists the progress and statistics on the use of the Welsh language within the Council on our main website, and also our Call to Vine telephone line. The Commissioner has focused their efforts on the Welsh language assessment made by councils on policy decisions during the last year, and the conscientious consideration required to satisfy the policy-making standards. This will be something we, as a council, will be focusing on in the 2024-25 financial year. There were 6 new complaints received during the period of this report. 1 has been resolved, 2 are ongoing and will be reported in the next year's annual monitoring report, and 3 were not investigated or not upheld, as the Council was complying fully with its Welsh language obligations. Welsh language skills. Of the 28% of staff who have completed the skills audit, 8.3 have some Welsh language skills to deliver services, which is comparable with the 8.24% of Welsh speakers in Torfaen in the 2021 census. The assessment uses the ALTI system for assessing Welsh language skills. Training. We offer Welsh language training to all our staff in line with the standards. These are offered through various teaching methods, face-to-face classes, virtual classes and online modules. 12 members of staff attended Welsh language training in the last financial year. As Councillor Jones has mentioned, the number of posts advertised requiring Welsh language skills has doubled to just under 10%. In the last year, the team has worked with our senior management team to remove the barriers that may restrict departments from advertising new or vacant positions with Welsh language skills. That concludes the report. I'm happy to take any questions. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Alan. Members, any questions? Leader.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'd like to thank Peter and Alan for that report and for all the hard work that's been done during the year on these standards. Particularly welcome the training in the workforce, especially around education. I think our Welsh medium schools like Ysgol Panteg are a real success story that we can build on in terms of the language. Just keen to ask sort of what the major sort of challenges and opportunities are there. I'm really keen that we sort of work together with the Commissioner and others to move forwards here, rather than that sort of binary sort of thing that often gets the news headlines about sort of complaints or appeals on standards. The more we can work together, I think, and the work that you do in doing that is really appreciated.
Thank you. Councillor David Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Just 2 things, really, if I may. The first thing was sort of, obviously you indicated a couple of investigations are ongoing. I just wanted to get some feel for how long that sort of process takes, particularly since one was a reopened one, the CS 1061. And then the second was slightly on the vein of the leader, is what sort of feedback do we get from the Welsh Language Commissioner, if you like, to help shape our forward direction, or is it very much a case that they focus on appeals and complaints?
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Right, how long did it take? If an investigation is started, it can take up to 6 months to ratify them or come to some conclusion. If we're found to have broken the standards. Now, if they are not upheld, they are concluded fairly quickly. What happens is that we have a terms of reference, then, you know, that takes process, you know, there's evidence gathered from either side, and then at the end, you know, going then to the end process, the feedback then, we do then get, if we are seen to have broken any of the standards, we are given then recommendations and action points by the Commissioner to, they have been within 3 months, but in the last financial year, they have moved that timescale to a year. So we have been given a year to comply with any action points that they've put forward.
Okay. Any other members wishing to speak or ask questions? Okay. Recommendations start on page 54 of the report. And the recommendation is that the annual report 23-24 is approved and publicised in line with the Welsh language standards. All those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. Agenda item 11, which is the closer working with Blaenau Gwent, which the report starts on page 75 of the agenda. Nigel Aurelius, Deputy Chief Executive, could you deliver this report, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. A relatively straightforward report, I think, that I'll take members briefly through, but quite a significant development, I would have thought. In the background, I mean, I just simply rehearse, you know, the financial challenges that are facing all local authorities. I don't see that going away anytime soon. So therefore, we always need to try and find new ways of doing things, or more efficient ways of doing things to protect frontline services, essentially. In the second paragraph there, I just rehearsed that effectively conversations have taken place, you know, with the leader of both Torfaen and Blaenau Gwent, supported initially by the WLGA to explore those challenges, and out of which, you know, emerged a proposal to perhaps for Blaenau Gwent and Torfaen to work closer together, initially through sharing the Chief Executive. So the next part of the report is just to outline, you know, the big picture potential benefits. Cost efficiency, obviously sharing a Chief Executive can reduce administrative costs, improve service delivery across councils, the potential to do things at greater scale. Obviously, two authorities working together, you can have enhanced innovation and lots of knowledge sharing, stronger in a strategic planning sense. Importantly, I think increased resilience and flexibility, you know, and especially as all authorities face recruitment challenges, public perception and trust, greater opportunities for staff development and career pathways, and importantly, with a combined size, potentially greater influence regionally and nationally. So the proposal before Council today, and a similar report will be going to Blaenau Gwent Council tomorrow, is that Torfaen's Chief Executive undertake the role full-time across the two authorities, and noting that's not a move towards each authority having a part-time Chief Executive. An initial focus mandate to explore the potential for efficiencies and resources that can work at scale, and potentially increasing innovation. Political and financial sovereignty will be maintained, though, by both councils. Each authority will maintain its own company plan, leadership team and governance structure. and importantly, each authority to have in place a first amongst equals or a deputy, so that there's continuity of leadership under the joint Chief Executive. This initial proposal running for a period of up to 9 months, and we're going to call that a discovery phase to explore those opportunities. And at the conclusion of that, we'll have a detailed report which will highlight the potential benefits or otherwise to both authorities, outline the risks and challenges, and then recommend either putting that initial arrangement on a more permanent footing or ceasing the arrangement. If it goes on a more permanent footing, then obviously things like service level agreements and how all this thing's going to work in detail will obviously have to be put before Council, and obviously Council will make that decision. All we're agreeing today, or suggesting today, is to share Stephen for a period of up to 9 months while we do a discovery phase to see whether there are benefits. It'll be covered by a joint protocol. It's in the appendix for information. In terms of financial implications, I don't see this being particularly significant financially. Obviously, we're going to get a contribution towards the costs of the Chief Executive, so that should reduce that cost. We'll obviously need to support the discovery piece, and I would have thought the saving that we'll get from the contribution will more than cover that. But if it doesn't, obviously that'll be we'll have to do a report and finance some from reserves. But again, I don't consider that to be significant. I'm looking for this. I would suggest to be cost neutral at worst. In terms of the risk, well, obviously the biggest risk or the most significant risk is a lack of leadership capacity in sharing Stephen with Blaen y Gwent. Obviously, that will be in part mitigated by insisting there are proper deputising arrangements in place, and that's particularly relevant for Blaen y Gwent to put in place to allow business to run. I mean, this isn't in the report, but I think it's worth saying it's also partly mitigated by the energy that Stephen will bring to bring to this proposal anyway, and I wouldn't envisage any lack of focus on Torfaen County Borough Council from Stephen. So I don't think there's much for members to worry about there. But in terms of any perceived risk, that needs to be set against the real risk we're all facing in terms of the financial challenges, which are and the demand challenges, which are going to keep growing, and the potential benefits that can arrive by doing things at scale. And that's basically the report. Thank you, Madam Presiding Member.
Thank you, Nigel. Councillor Anthony Hunt, do you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. I'd like to commend this report to Council, and also, in doing that, to thank Stephen for his can-do attitude in approaching this. I think there'd be two dangers of this kind of report for me. One is if it was entirely the Chief Executive's own idea and the Chief Executive was looking to empire build, or if I, as the leader, were looking to empire build, but that's not the case in this. And secondly, if this was embarked on with a lack of enthusiasm, and that's certainly not the case as well. I think this has been done for the right reasons. There's always an element of unknown involved in being innovative, but I think the biggest risk for me in where we sit now is just trying to stick to business as usual. I don't think we can afford to do that if we to protect local services. I think we have to be innovative, and we can't just stand still as the tide comes in around us. We have to look at the opportunities in doing things like this and not just the risks. I think sometimes in Wales we're very good at looking at risk and weighing up risk, and we're less good at perhaps being innovative and doing what needs to be done to bring about change. This discovery phase for me is designed to be a win-win thing. It's a period where we can discover what can be done of benefit and what can't, and then we can move on accordingly. And I think it's done for the right reason, for a couple of reasons, really. First is recognition of the pressure on some of our frontline teams at the moment. I think this has the potential to uncover opportunities for better scale, better professional development, and more resilience amongst those teams, so they're less pressured when, for example, one member of a team is unwell or one member of a team moves on to another role. I think the resilience that this could helped bring about in some areas of our operations are significant. Secondly, because I think this is a genuine partnership between two councils who do view this as a partnership, not as an imposition by one on another. I think there's mutual benefit to be explored in this, and that's why we're very keen to work together. And thirdly, I think because we're united in our desire to protect the front line. I think too often in large organisations, the front line gets taken from first, rather than senior management looking to cut their cloth first. I think this is an example of senior management cutting their cloth in order to protect the front line and to protect outcomes for the people that we serve. So I would commend this report to Council. I think this gives us the best of both worlds. It gives us an opportunity to discover where the opportunities lie and discover where they don't, and then come back to Council to see how to take things forward.
Thank you, Leader. Any other members wishing to speak? Sue. Councillor Sue.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I think this is a really exciting opportunity, and it's great to see that such a collaborative approach is really being put at the forefront of saving money for the public purse and redirecting it into areas where people desperately need the support of our services. So I'm really pleased to see that we're exploring these options. Just a question around the extra capacity that is mentioned in para 7.1. It seems to me that specialist resource to help this discovery phase from people with experience and expertise in looking at this kind of collaboration would be really welcome. I don't know how frequently this type of shared chief exec role is done. Certainly, I'm not aware of anything in Wales. I think there are examples in England where we could potentially learn from that kind of expert input. So I suppose I would encourage that we look for that extra capacity from those with significant experience in looking at this type of project.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Any other? Councillor Burnett.
Thank you, Chair. As was explained about the risks, we have to take risks sometimes. I'm a bit apprehensive about it as a council ourselves, with all the officers finishing, what pressure would put on other officers as they leave if our recruitment doesn't go very well. So I do have concerns about that, putting the pressure on us. Steve would do an excellent job, I know. And another question, is it happening throughout Wales, or is it just collaboration with us and Blaenau Gwent, or other councils doing it throughout Wales as well?
I could pick up both of those. I think it's not being done elsewhere in Wales, as far as I know. I think we're breaking new ground. And when it did start to emerge, I haven't been in many treasurers' meetings where people are coming up to me and sort of, I wouldn't say congratulating me, but certainly, Audit Wales were, very positive about it, and other treasurers very positive. I'm sure we can make this work, and if we make this work, I think others will be looking at us. In terms of the capacity, we've talked that through extensively as a leadership team, and we're comfortable that we will be able to support Stephen in that. Yes, we've got a number of people leaving over the next 6 to 9 months, but the recruitment is going well on all of those. But I go back to the point I made. We'll have significant financial challenges, so all the risks need to be mitigated against the potential opportunities that are in here. If you just think of any of our budgets, you combine them, your buying power is different. Your ability to make savings, is just greatly enhanced. And in relation to Councillor Morgan's point, that's exactly right. We are going to be looking for expertise wherever that is, and it will undoubtedly be external to the authority, and in some parts external perhaps to Wales, where, because there are some examples in England where they have shared chief executives, not on the same lines as we're talking here, but that's the whole basis of a discovery phase on both those points. If doesn't prove to be, beneficial, well, we won't, finally come back and report it. I think it's very sensible to take that 9 months to do this properly and seriously, but with energy and vigour. And I'm absolutely convinced there will be more benefits than negatives, out of this. And probably in 3 or 4 years' time, other authorities will be looking at the model that we will have created.
Peter, did you want to come on that point? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member, and very valid questions from Councillor Burnett. I think we are at the forefront. Councils are collaborating together more and working in partnership more than ever across Wales, but I think this does put us at the cutting edge, and I hope Welsh Government are taking notice of that. If they want things like this to work, then work with us, be active partners. So I'll certainly be lobbying along those lines to say, look, if you want to make this work, then you've got an opportunity to help us make it work. On recruitment, I think our reputation is a huge factor in recruitment, in being able to recruit some of the senior officers, including Stephen, that we have in the last 2 years. I think that's largely done because we've got a reputation as a council of being innovative and a good place to work. So I think this will bear dividends in terms of that ongoing recruitment, because they won't just see it as coming to work in one local authority in Wales, they'll see it as coming to work in a forward-thinking authority that wants to put the services it provides first. So hopefully that will have a positive benefit in terms of recruitment, and certainly anecdotally that's the feedback I've had from recent recruitment exercises that we've done, that people have, good calibre candidates have sought to come and work in Torfaen because of the reputation that we're getting. And I would just say as well that in the last sort of 4 years, I've had the privilege of working as part of regional work very closely with lots of very distinguished people in the private sector. And the one thing they always point out to me is that the public sector is very good at weighing up the risks of doing something, is less good at weighing up the risks of doing nothing. And I think we need to weigh those things off against each other. Sometimes we look at the risks of different courses of action and just stand still. And as lots of those business leaders will tell me, that's the guaranteed way to fail. We need to be innovative, to look at how we do things differently and look at how we move forwards.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Stewart-Ashley, you wish to speak?
I think I thought it was an incredibly interesting proposal, ostensibly maybe to save money, but at the same time, it's also bringing two councils together. Obviously, at the moment, they've both got different focuses. I was looking at the monitoring arrangements and possible scrutiny on this and how you make it work. Obviously, we've got governance, and we've got three scrutinies that I can see in there. We've got the leadership team, the governance and audit arrangement, and scrutiny itself. And Stephen's always been very keen to bring things to us, even at backbench level, to discuss this matters. I'm wondering what arrangements you've got in place. And as Anthony's just said, we've been quite innovative from doing partnership arrangements all over the place at certainly a high level. So it'd be interesting to see how we would measure success in this, measure success and measure how we would go ahead with this, or whether it works or not. Can somebody, Anthony and Nigel, give some idea on that? Because that's the sort of thing I think would be important.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart-Ashley. Nigel?
Thank you, Councillor Ashley. I think you raised some important points there that at this point in time we haven't thought through, in full detail. But obviously there will be a role for certainly the overview and business overview and scrutiny committee, and we'll think that through now and come back with some proposals.
Thank you, Councillor Lucy Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. A comment, well, two comments really. I think I'd like to see that. I think this proposal is entirely appropriate in the attitude it's taken towards risk taking, and this is and I think the level of risk taking is appropriate, and the way it's been looked at is appropriate. I think following on Councillor Ashley's comments, it's going to be really helpful during this 9-month period to have feedback as any risks or positive outcomes come across. So I think just kind of like confirming that kind of regular feedback in whatever is the most appropriate way is going to be really helpful and really important over this 9-month period. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Lucy. Councillor David Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I'd like to echo the support for this proposal. I think it's sensible. It's an important way forward. My only point, I think, would be that the Chief Executive has done a very good job of making himself available and accessible to members. So I think it's going to be very important to ensure the member impact is considered, and this is not solely considered in an officer council basis, because I think it's about measuring expectations and managing expectations. Some very good things have been put in place, but I think we are going to need to play our part as members to perhaps temper our expectations to allow Stephen to be able to do this as best he can to get the best out of it, to see how well it works.
Thank you. Councillor Jason O'Connell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think we've been very lucky as an authority to have Stephen as our CEO. I think I've worked with a lot of CEOs in my career, and Stephen is certainly up there as one of the best I've seen in private or public sector. So it's to use a footballing parlance, it's like sending your star striker out on loan a little bit. So a little bit upsetting from that point of view. But my question is, if this is successful, and given the mark of the man, I've no doubt that it will be, does that then lead to other functions being combined, such as human resources, finance, strategic leadership, and do we then consider bigger departments like education? And you can see where I'm going with this, and over time we see a gradual creeping towards the merging of the boroughs, or is this strictly just at a CEO level for now?
Nigel.
I mean, I think the initial proposal before us today is to share Stephen, but to explore the potential benefits of the authorities working more closely together. And that will be, looking at all, the services that we provide and those opportunities. At the moment, I don't think there's been no feed to us that the authorities are not going to remain politically sovereign, that they will exist, as sovereign bodies, and that they will, set their own council tax, etc., etc. So I don't think we're going into this looking to totally merge the authorities. There are a lot of complications attached to that, which we would certainly need government support and funding to make that work. But with that being said, everything underneath that has the potential to create efficiencies and improve services for Torfaen, and Blaen y Gwent, will be considered. At the moment, I mean, I almost view it as a sort of, it's a bigger version of a federated school, where they sit as almost independent schools, but with federated leadership, and therefore can take, when it's appropriate to take account of scale, and when it's not, and when it needs to be local to adapt to local circumstances. So I think it's stopping some way short of actual merger of the two councils and all the complexities that go with that.
Thank you, Nigel. Alan Slade, Councillor Alan Slade.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just a little bit confused. Since local government, since devolution, 1999, the Welsh Government have conducted 3 reviews into local government, and each of those has suggested either merging of local authorities or closer working with local authorities. Each of those reports were rejected by the WLGA. And I just kind of wonder, what's changed? You know, why is it such a great idea now when the WGA itself sort of poo-pooed the idea 3 times? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Councillor Janet Jones, please.
Sorry, thank you. I want to thank Nigel for his response to the questions raised by Jason O'Connell, because they were exactly the questions I was going to raise, and it does give me a little bit more assurance. Thanks, Nigel. Thanks, Chair.
Peter, do you want to come in then?
Just wanted to respond to the previous question. Yeah, I think the difference in this is sort of a bottom-up process rather than a top-down one. And this is one led by where we think there are local opportunities, as opposed to impose on an all-Wales system. I always thought that the fixation on how many councils there are was missing the point a little bit. And I think more, you know, the gains are to be made in how those councils work together and how the services cut across different councils, as opposed to just the old sort of adage about 22 chief executives, which is just a tiny fraction of 1% of the cost of councils. So I think the differences are, in answer to your question, Councillor Slade, one, this is a bottom-up approach rather than one that's being imposed from the top down. And number two, it looks much more at the systems and the services that we use, as opposed to just the structure of the councils. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor David Daniels?
Much of what I was going to say has actually already been said, but you know, building on what Anthony and Nigel have said, really, I mean, we have had many attempts to, you know, amalgamate councils across Wales over the years. I think this is a pragmatic solution to that and a more sensible way forward, because I think, you know, in answer to your question, Councillor, say, we have already been engaging in, you know, cross-county working. You know, our revenue and benefits team, we work with Monmouthshire. I think our trading standards team already work with Blaenau Gwent. So we've already got various different examples of where we can collaborate and you know, create those economies of scale, which ultimately work for both of us. So I think that's the blueprint for where we're headed, really. And I think that the potential for if we're looking at it on a case-by-case basis, the potential for benefits for both of us, especially in a period where we foresee, you know, finances being, you know, tight for the foreseeable future, even with a change in UK government, I think this is the way to go. You know, I've had my misgivings around amalgamation, but this is a much more sensible approach, as Anthony's elaborated on, that it's on a case-by-case basis. That's the best way to do it, rather than top-down, just complete amalgamation. So I think this is hopefully future-proofing us.
Thank you, Councillor Daniels. Councillor David Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I am a little concerned about this, but I do obviously see the potential benefits of it. But that's probably me being selfish, because I don't like sharing much. But also, you know, we're sharing a chief exec, as far as I'm concerned, has absolutely turned this council around, and you know, I'm very proud of what Stephen does. So we have to respect Stephen for taking on this huge challenge, and give him the kudos he deserves for going for it. Blaenau Gwent, again, a hell of a deal. I was just wondering whether, I'm not sure whether this is allowed or not, whether we could ask Stephen's thoughts on you know, how he feels about this move.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thanks you, Councillor Thompson. Thank you all for your support, and very much for your kind words, as embarrassing as that can be sometimes. I think when I was first approached, it's quite a frightening prospect. Of course it is. One recognises just how big a job it will be, which is why we worked hard to ensure that there was this opportunity at the front end of this process to put in place the discovery phase, to ensure that actually what we got was a mandate to look to work as effectively as we possibly can together. I'm convinced that we can do that because I think both councils recognise the value in those opportunities. So from that perspective, it's exciting, albeit, of course, one has to recognise just the size of the challenge. Look, you'll know me. I'm the kind of person that runs every race at 100 miles an hour, whichever race I'm in. I don't think this is the same race. It's a different one. I think that's an important way to look at it. One of the reasons we've been quite clear within the report to set out that this is not a part-time job in two authorities. That's a race that I don't think anybody can run, and I don't think I could do it in either. So it is about effectively looking to run a very, very different race, to do things very differently, but that in itself is very exciting. I think this council has shown in the past that it can be innovative, that it wants to be at the front of this type of change, and I think this is a great opportunity for us. And my promise to you is I'll continue to work at 100 miles an hour for this council, as well as I will for Blaenau Gwent. And I will end by saying this. If you'd have asked me this probably even 18 months ago, I don't think I would have had I think it would have been a very different response. But over the past 2.5 years, I've worked with what is undoubtedly for me the best leadership team I've ever worked with. I'm completely confident in the team around me here in Torfaen, and I'm increasingly confident in the people that I'm meeting in Blaenau Gwent. And I think actually when it comes to working together on the challenges that we've got for the future, I think actually the two councils can actually really set a new standard and between all of us, because it's not just about me, of course, it's about what we all do together. I think you know, that can really paint a rosy picture for local government in Wales, and I'm keen to be a part of that.
Thank you, Stephen. Don't see anybody else wishing to speak. And before we take the vote, I'd like to wish the Chief Exec all the best. I don't know whether he realises what the job is with Blaenau Gwent. They've had a turbulent past, and hopefully they'll have a better future. So I wish both councils all the best in having Stephen at the helm. So the recommendations, members, are on page 79 of the report at 10.1. Members, do you agree these recommendations, please? Thank you. Are there any members against the recommendations? Are there any abstentions? One against. Thank you, Anne. Thank you. That report is carried. Thank you very much. Can I now ask the Chief Executive to leave the room for this item, please? It's agenda item 12, and it's discussing the Joint Chief Executive salary, which is on page 87 of your report. Thank you. Jason Lewis, Director of Corporate Services, could you deliver this report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. This report is obviously complementary to the last report, and its purpose is to propose a salary for the Chief Executive for the duration of his tenure in the joint role across Torfaen and Blaenau Gwent, assuming the recommendation that this Council has just approved is also approved by Blaenau Gwent at its meeting tomorrow. It is a requirement of each individual council to determine the appropriate rate of pay for its Chief Executive. There are no national pay scales for Chief Executives, as there are for other grades of council officers. This leads to a wide variation in pay rates across authorities, although in order to maintain a level of consistency, benchmarks across authorities of similar sizes are often utilised in the absence of any other guiding factors. The Council established its present pay band for its Chief Executive over 20 years ago, and the Council's Chief Executives have been paid a salary within this pay band ever since, subject, of course, to any nationally negotiated and agreed increases. Where changes are proposed to the pay of a Council's Chief Executive, there is a statutory requirement for the full Council to be given opportunity to approve changes to salary packages. The Council also has a statutory obligation to consult with the Independent Remuneration Panel for Wales, the IRP, on any changes that propose to increase the rate of pay for its Chief Executive. and have regard to any recommendation received from the IRP when deciding whether or not to proceed with making the change. As previously referenced, there are no national scales upon which to benchmark the Chief Executive's salary. It is therefore the responsibility of each employing authority to determine the appropriate rate of pay for his Chief Executive, using any informal benchmarks, such as the rates applied to similar-sized authorities and ones that are applied elsewhere within the region as appropriate. The Chief Executive's present salary is within the lower quartile of those paid across Welsh authorities and is commensurate with authorities of a similar size and complexity. Should the proposal to establish joint Chief Executive arrangements across Torfaen and Blaenau Gwent be approved by both councils, it would increase significantly to the challenges and complexities of the role, acting as a statutory head of paid service across two sovereign organisations, delivering services to a significantly larger population and operating within two policy frameworks. It is therefore appropriate for the level of pay for the role of Joint Chief Executive to be reviewed and an appropriate rate to be proposed. The combined populations of Torfaen and Blaenau Gwent is around 160,000. The closest match from a population perspective is Newport, with a population of 161,000. We have therefore chosen to use Newport as a benchmark from a population perspective, with the additional relevance that it is close regionally. Our Chief Executive is currently paid £132,023 per annum. The top of the grade for Newport's Chief Executive is £156,235 per annum. Using this rationale, it is therefore recommended to Council that the remuneration for the role of Joint Chief Executive should be on a fixed point of £156,235 per annum. This rate of pay is also typical of the rates paid to Chief Executives of other mid-sized local authorities in Wales. The rate would be subject to the nationally negotiated pay awards as normal. In recommending this, and as stated at paragraph 4.4 of the report, the challenges of acting as Chief Executive across two local authorities with two budgets, two workforces and two policy frameworks is considerably more complex than across a single authority, irrespective of size. The funding of the salary will be split equally between both councils, but it is expected the role would be a substantive one across both councils rather than a part-time arrangement for each, as been expressed earlier. The IRP have been consulted on the proposed rate of pay being recommended in this report, together with the rationale for arriving at the proposal. Despite numerous prompts over the course of 2 months, no recommendation on the proposal has been received from the IRP. However, it should be noted they have also raised no concerns. There are no negative financial implications arising out of this report. The proposed salary will be split equally between the partner councils. There will be a salary saving as a consequence. The only risk associated with this proposal relates to the requirement to consult with the IRP and have regard to the recommendation when deciding on the appropriate rate of pay. A failure to follow the advice of the IRP may result in a ministerial direction to reconsider the decision. It is believed that the Council has acted reasonably and made every attempt to provide the IRP with all the information necessary and in a timely fashion to assist them in providing the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Any comments from any members? Councillor Sue Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Just a question. I didn't spot in the report the probably obvious point that should there be a decision not to continue with the arrangement, that the salary would return to the current salary point. Is that the case?
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Yes, that is correct. Should we not decide to continue with the arrangement beyond the discovery phase, Stephen will return to his substantive salary.
Thank you. No further comments? Thank you, members. The recommendations start on page 89 of the report.
Apologies, Madam Presiding Member. We've got Councillor Jason O'Connell online.
Oh, I couldn't see his hand. Oh, right. Sorry, Councillor Jason O'Connell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. Given that we're planning on doubling pretty much Stephen's workload, his authority over the two regions, the number of population increases, do we consider, and of course his performance in role, do we consider that increase to be enough for that role, or should we consider something slightly higher to make sure we retain him?
Thanks, Councillor O'Connell. I think in the current circumstance, as we're entering into a discovery phase, I think the the proposal is reasonable, mindful of the interest around senior pay within local government and the wider public sector. I think we need to show a level of restraint in determining what is appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Recommendations start on page 89 of the report. Members, do you agree with the recommendations? Anybody against the recommendations? Don't see any. Any abstentions? That report is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jason. Would the Chief Exec like to come back in? Takes us to agenda item 13, which is the motions on notice. There are no motions on notice, so we move on to agenda item 14, member question time. There are no member questions, and we move on to agenda item 15. I need to read the exclusion of press and public. Members of the press and public are excluded under paragraph 12 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended. As the report contains information identifying individuals which should not be made available at this stage, as it would have a detrimental effect on the fairness of the hearing and the complaint if the press and public gave views on the allegations in advance of the hearing, the result of which is required under the protocol to be reported in full to Council at a later date, so that the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs that of disclosing the information. Agenda item